So, so anybody who has an exam today or is absent will be able to see this as well. All right, so we're going to be talking about environmental solutions today. Everything's just going to be slower because you've got Google Meet, you've got presenting to class, and then recording on whatever recording software it is. So we're going to talk about environmental solutions and we're going to look at some examples. So these lists that you guys are going to see here, these solutions, they're not generic to the questions. They aren't all one size fits all. You can kind of shove them in wherever you need them. So some solutions in general aren't going to work in all locations, so you need to think about that. If you are proposing a hydroelectric dam for hydropower, that might be too costly to build in a remote location in a developing country. That might be more, it might be better to put solar panels, wind turbines, something like that. Those are going to be more effective, more reasonable. Okay. Also, cost is a major issue with a lot of things, especially building nuclear plants and irrigation. When you're talking about drip irrigation, it's very money and labor intensive. And almost every single solution that we're going to go over basically has a hurdle that makes it almost impossible to use in certain locations and under certain situations. So there is no one size fits all for this stuff. There we go. If you're going to say renewable energy, make sure you specify wind power, solar power, hydroelectricity. And make sure with energy, if they're asking how do you conserve energy, and you're putting switch to renewable, such as wind energy. Well, that doesn't mean you're conserving energy. It means you're using a greener energy. You're using a more sustainable energy, but you're not conserving any energy by doing that. Okay, water and energy conservation are things that use less of it. This is just coming from a different source. Right? Other good options for certain answers of solutions are creating riparian zones or creating a wetland or a mangrove forest or reestablishing those areas. And then what you also want to do is make sure that you go back and then you're talking about why these wetlands and these mangroves and these riparian zones are so important to buffer our oceans, our lakes, our streams, our rivers. Okay, what are some of the amazing qualities that wetlands and mangroves provide for us, whether it's ecologically, like a nesting ground for birds, whether it's a migratory stopover, it provides lots of food and shelter for animals. It's a big fishery or nursery for a lot of our marine fish. It absorbs storm water. It buffers storms. It provides a beautiful location that brings in ecotourism or just people to come and see it. All right. There are all sorts of reasons. There's not just one reason that you should be able to think of. You should be able to think of a bunch of different reasons for a lot of these. Okay. Green roofs. If you're going to say plant a green roof, well, why? Okay. Well, to mitigate the urban heat islands. Well, how? How are you going to use a green roof to mitigate an urban heat island? Okay, well, they absorb carbon dioxide, they emit out oxygen. Instead of what happens is these urban roofs, these green roofs, they take in the sunlight. And instead of reflecting it back out as heat energy, they just absorb that sunlight. They use it for photosynthesis. Okay, so they're not creating any more heat, they're actually mitigating the urban heat island effect. Okay. Education is always an awesome option. A couple different types of education. Okay, you're going to educate people in general about family planning to reduce population growth. The biggest thing you can do to reduce population growth, though, is educate women, not just about family planning, contraceptives, how babies are born, but you're going to educate women so that they go to school, so that they become educated, so that they marry later in life, and then they have less kids. Okay, that's a big one. Education can also be starting some sort of a billboard campaign about the negative effects of carbon dioxide, about reducing your ecological footprint, about how to carpool, about how to reduce your ecological footprint, or even the amount of gas that you use, kind of thing. All right. And then if you're going to say something like, well, you would build habitat corridors. If you have like a bunch of habitat fragmentation, what would you do? What would your suggestion be? Or come up with an environmental solution. You were like, oh, building a habitat corridor, which is a phenomenal answer, let's say, for the specific question that's being asked. But then you don't go to say anything about it. Okay. What do habitat corridors do? You're connecting these small habitats now. Explain what it is. Explain why you want to do it, to facilitate travel between these two habitats, for a greater gene pool, to increase the biodiversity, to make more available food or living space or water or breeding areas. Okay. Make sure you guys have some really great answers, but you don't elaborate on them enough much of the time. Agricultural practices are another one. Things like crop rotation, contour farming, no-till agriculture. Contour farming, no-till agriculture. Those are soil conservations. They conserve soil by preventing runoff, because in no-till agriculture, there's stuff on top. There's litter from the previous years. And then the crop rotation is you're putting nutrients back into the soil. You know, I don't know what this means. I read it. I still don't know what it means. Then you have different types of sustainable irrigation. Drip irrigation may not always be cost effective. It might not always be efficient and timely. So you go to center pivot irrigation and explain out what center pivot irrigation is. Again, back in the urban areas, instead of green roofs, urban rain gardens, artificial wetlands to absorb stormwater runoff, recharge groundwater. Keep it simple, but make sure there's detail. If you're going to say something like use an alternative building material, make sure you give an example. Okay, Mycobond is an alternative material that functions like plastic and foam, but it's made from plant waste and mycelium. Mycelium is the roots and all of the underground of mushrooms. Okay. Then food rescue programs to reduce food waste. We're gonna do more of that. Hold on. So then there's integrated pest management. If you can't go 100% organic, then let's switch to integrated pest management. Focus on the biological control of pests, mechanical removing, using organic fertilizers before going to the heavy stuff. You're going to use that as a last resort. But be careful, because your biological controls can also become an invasive species. Right? So make sure your answer makes sense. You can use passive solar energy, and you can describe, if you're building a house, how you can use passive solar heating in your house, southern facing, deciduous trees, but explain those things out. A little off the beaten path answers are things like having pervious parking pavements. So we now have pervious asphalt and pervious concrete that water actually goes through. It doesn't just run off of. But make sure you know about that if you're going to say something about it. Rainwater harvesting. Okay, that's keeping a rain barrel like at your house or an office building, where the water runs off into gutters, from the gutters into your rain barrels, and then you use those rain barrels to water your garden. If you are using less water, don't just say use less water. Say take shorter showers. Install a more efficient low flow shower head. Okay, Lionel, what's going on? Yeah, you need that thing up. Thank you. Dual flush toilets. Make sure you explain what a dual flush toilet is. Okay, One flush is a small flush. The one with two is for a poop. That's a bigger flush. Okay, one is a larger volume of water. One is a smaller volume of water. Using gray water and smart meters, explain out gray water. If you have a gray water tank in your house, what happens is your water from your showers, I think it's mostly showers, goes into a tank. It goes through a small filter, gets pumped up into your toilets. When you flush, okay, when you're going to the bathroom, you're not going to the bathroom into clean, potable water like we all do right now. You're going to the bathroom in already used water. So here we come to urban farming. Urban farming, like in Detroit and South Central LA, remember you saw that guerrilla gardener? And these urban farming areas are, you take kind of any usable space you possibly can, whether it's on a roof or it's on the ground, and you plant a garden, kind of any usable space. This addresses food deserts. Food deserts are these depressed areas that people are on a lot of assistance and food stamps, and what the food stamps buys them is basically dried and canned goods. And people aren't getting a lot of fresh fruit and produce. And so those are food deserts where you don't have this fresh food coming in. This addresses these food deserts. It improves the health of local communities. You're improving the health of people by giving them good food to eat. You're creating local jobs because people are working in these community gardens. People are tending to these community gardens. You're stimulating the local economy. They're amazing. If you're going to talk about smart growth cities or smart building design or LEED buildings, LEED buildings, make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure you know components of those. LEED buildings and LEED building design isn't such a big thing anymore. So we talked about it, but we didn't go into great detail with it. Okay. There's another thing here, an idea that has been gaining traction. But the thing is that this AP exam is most likely the AP exam that was going to be given last year. And the free response questions for that are typically written like 2 or 3 years ago. So we're talking about 2017, 2018. And in that time, we were in the middle of the Trump administration. So as far as alternatives and renewables and stuff like that, there wasn't much stuff in the news about that. So we usually try to speculate about what FRQs are going to be about, but this year we absolutely have no clue. I'm really interested to see what the FRQs are going to be. But an idea here is if you lease farmland to build wind farms, it's not a solar array. A solar array, it covers everything. If you have these wind farms, these big wind turbines, they're not taking up a very large footprint. And what happens is these farmers lease the land to these energy companies, and it helps to create a steady income for farmers. It helps to retain young people in these communities that might be growing economically depressed without new income streams. Farming is not profitable. That's why there are so many government subsidies. Remember we were doing the corn? You guys had to look at a chart to see what percentage of it was like government subsidized, and it was an insane amount of money and percentage. All right, so that's what I have here. What I want to do is bring you guys up to a couple examples of environmental causes and solutions. All right, so you guys should just be able to see my screen. And what we're going to do here is, I might not be able to say, it's going to be slow. So I want to give you guys an example. So here it says ozone layer depletion. So what's the cause? CFCs. Yes, this person isn't wrong. But if they're saying describe a cause of ozone layer depletion, you're not getting the point. If this was asking just identify one chemical that causes ozone layer depletion, you could get a point for this. but this is just saying ozone layer depletion. Okay, the cause of ozone layer depletion is an increase of chlorine atoms in the ozone layer that destroy ozone molecules. Okay? The presence of CFCs, human anthropogenic CFCs, getting up into the stratosphere and destroying ozone molecules. You need to give a bit more than this. What's the solution? Carpool. Okay, one solution. Carpool, that would be the first one. That's wrong, because nothing that we produce out of the tailpipe of a car is an ozone depleting chemical. So here, the solution to ozone layer depletion would be reduce or stop the manufacture of CFCs, HFCs, and other ozone depleting chemicals. Okay. Create a ban on these chemicals. That's basically the only way to do it. The ozone layer is going to heal by itself. Let's take a look at global climate change. Okay, so your cause of the global climate change is carbon dioxide. Well, what about carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Global climate change is caused by global warming, which is the increase in Earth's annual temperature, caused by greenhouse gases. You can explain the greenhouse gas effect. You can list, a greenhouse gas, but just putting carbon dioxide isn't going to get you any. Right? So what's the solution? Renewable energies instead of fossil fuels. Yes, bless you. Using renewable or replacing greenhouse gas emitting power plants like coal burning power plants with a renewable energy source such as solar energy, wind power, hydropower. You could even go nuclear on this, because with nuclear, there is no carbon dioxide released during the actual electricity generating process. All right. What's the cause of the depletion of fossil fuel reserves? Mining of minerals and oil. Okay. Well, fossil fuel reserves, minerals, you wouldn't get a point for this. Mining of minerals isn't why we're depleting our fossil fuels. We're depleting our fossil fuels because of mining of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas for human consumption in the process of creating electricity, driving our cars, heating our houses. Solution: buy locally harvested food. This is a valid response, not the way it is. Okay, but the thing is that you can say if you buy locally harvested food, it reduces the amount of fossil fuels needed to transport that food over long distances. It's a great answer. It just doesn't have enough information there. Okay. Let's go. Invasive species spread by human activities. That's not wrong either. But there's not enough information there. Invasive species are spread by a new species getting brought in on a pallet from another country, another area of the world. Okay. And then what happens is they establish themselves because they have no natural predators. So what's our solution here? Okay, clean hiking and fishing gear. That's assuming you're hiking and fishing in another country or in another area. Okay. You could clean up that answer so that you make sure that you are cleaning all gear when you are, from being outside, if traveling to a different area of the world, country, etc. All right. Eutrophication is caused by accumulation of nutrients. Again, not wrong. Eutrophication is caused by excess nutrient runoff, specifically nitrates and phosphates, into a body of water, which then cause algal blooms, which then decompose, use up oxygen, and cause hypoxic conditions. Okay? A leads to B, B leads to C, C leads to D. What's our solution? Plant buffers. Plant a row of shrubs, grass, trees in between agricultural land and lakes, streams, and rivers so that that excess nutrient runoff is caught before it goes into the body of water. Pass a law saying that you can only put a certain amount of fertilizers on your crops. Pass a law saying you need to put alternative types of fertilizers on your crops. Right. Let's see another one. Here we go. Plastic pollution. The cause is anthropogenic. It's humans. Accumulation of plastic waste in the environment from improper disposal, from ocean dumping, from something. What's the solution? Consider any recycling techniques that could diminish the amount of plastic that goes into the ocean. Diminish is a terrible word to use in general. Okay? Diminish, unless you're talking about like diminishing supplies. That's even depleting. So, recycle plastic into other things to prevent it from going into the ocean. All right. Deforestation due to agricultural expansion. That's it, one thing. People cut down trees because they want to plant crops there. How do we do it? Banning clear cutting of forests. That's not going to happen. That's one of these overarching things. So you could have certain areas designated. Instead of agriculture, you could have other agricultural areas being rehabbed. You could look into different ways of planting on top of buildings or in other areas. Okay? Or you can regulate how much forest can be chopped down a year. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple examples like this in the presentation. I was trying to do it. I couldn't do it while people were on, and it just wasn't working. I needed more time. All right. That's what I have for you guys. It is, you guys have until 11:02 in this class. You are taking the next exam. Good luck. You're taking an exam tomorrow and I won't see you. Good luck. Tomorrow is, you guys are green. I don't see you guys tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is there are going to be a bunch of crash course kind of reviews going on. Smeeds is doing one, somebody else is doing one. These are live like Facebook reviews. I highly, highly, highly suggest you guys pop on those. So what I'm going to do is I'll send out reminds to you guys when these things are going to be happening with links. Okay? So questions, comments, concerns. If you guys are virtual and you're taking the exam on Friday, make sure you get here by 11:45. That's what they're saying, right? 11:45, 11:50. If you are in school on Friday, okay, my suggestion is stay home in the morning. Take the absence or be virtual. And then come in for your exam at 11:45. If you're coming into school and you're sitting in classes, make sure that you leave class at 11:30 to go eat lunch, and make sure you bring lunch with you. Okay, going until 3:30 is a long time to go without lunch. Okay, how do I stop this? Yep, everything's frozen. There we go.